My folks attempted to divert my inheritance to my sister, their golden child, but my grandpa's will had an unexpected clause. I'm a 28-year-old guy, and I come from a family where favoritism has run deep for generations. My little sister Amy, who's 25, has always been the apple of my parents' eye, especially Dad's, much more than me. This bias started when we were kids and only intensified as we got older. From my earliest recollections, Amy was treated like royalty. Our parents organized a lavish birthday bash for her, complete with hired face painters, a bouncy house, and even a petting zoo, when I was 5 and she just 2. For my birthday that same year, I got a simple cake from the store and a small dinner with the family. This pretty much set the stage for the coming years. The disparities became even more obvious with time. Amy consistently got the latest gadgets, the trendiest outfits, and the bulk of their attention. I remember diligently saving up my allowance for months to buy a new bicycle when I was 10. Amy, upon seeing it, threw a tantrum because she wanted one too. Instead of teaching her about patience or saving, my parents immediately bought her a bike that was even fancier than mine. School was another area where the imbalance was evident. My parents made it a point to attend all of Amy's school events, while they frequently skipped mine. In 4th grade, I landed the lead role in our school play. I rehearsed tirelessly for weeks, fueled by genuine excitement. On the opening night, my parents showed up an hour late, completely missing my key scene. They had been comforting Amy, who claimed to have a stomachache. She recovered quickly, and they simply lost track of time while playing with her. Academically, it felt like nothing I achieved was ever good enough. I became a member of the math club, consistently earned straight A's in middle school, and even won first place in a regional science competition. My parents barely acknowledged these accomplishments, yet they threw Amy a celebratory dinner and gifted her a new phone just for getting a B+ on a test in her worst subject, encouraging her to keep improving. High school, in particular, was a tough period. I poured myself into every activity imaginable, striving for their approval. I maintained a 4.0 GPA, served as the editor of the school paper, and captained the debate team. Amy, on the other hand, barely maintained a C average and spent most of her time socializing. I was selected as one of 2 students from our school to attend a prestigious summer program at Harvard during my junior year. It was a huge honor, and I was thrilled. When I shared the news at dinner, my dad grumbled and changed the subject to Amy's upcoming dance recital. My mom did say, "That's nice," but she quickly moved on. My parents couldn't drive me to the airport on the day I was leaving for Harvard because it coincided with Amy's performance, and they wanted to be there for her. I had to ask a friend's parents for a ride. The college application process was another agonizing ordeal. I dedicated months to perfecting my essays, participating in extracurriculars, and preparing for the SAT. I received acceptance letters from several top-tier universities and was awarded a substantial scholarship to my dream school. When I announced this at dinner, my parents' response was lukewarm at best. "That's great, but don't get a big head. College isn't everything," my dad cautioned. "Just remember us when you're off being a big shot," my mom added. Conversely, when Amy barely graduated high school and decided against college, my parents were incredibly supportive. They praised her for knowing herself and defying societal norms, something they never did for me. They even bought her a car as a graduation present. This constant favoritism took a significant toll on my emotional well-being. Throughout my teens and early 20s, I struggled with anxiety and depression. It wasn't until I started therapy in college that I began to understand that my parents' behavior wasn't my fault. It took years of work to rebuild my self-worth and learn to validate myself, independent of my parents' approval. Despite the lack of support from my immediate family, I've managed to build a fulfilling life. I graduated from college with honors, secured a good job in finance, and even bought my own home by the age of 27. I'm proud of my accomplishments, even if my parents aren't. Now, here's where the current situation unfolds. My grandfather on my dad's side recently passed away. He was a successful businessman who built his wealth from scratch, and he left behind a considerable estate. In his will, he divided his assets equally among his grandchildren, myself, Amy, and our cousins, and his children, my dad and his siblings. My share of the inheritance was substantial, around $500,000. This would allow me to invest in my future, pay off my student loans, and potentially even start my own business someday. I was overjoyed by this unexpected blessing and the opportunities it could create. However, when the will was read, my parents became visibly upset. Later, they pulled me aside and expressed their belief that it was unfair for me to receive an equal share. They argued that Amy, who still lives in their basement and works part-time at a cafe, needed the money more because she was struggling. I was shocked, but I tried to remain calm. I explained that this was my grandpa's decision, and they had no right to interfere. They insisted that I had a moral obligation to give my share to Amy. When I refused, they became furious and started guilt-tripping me, calling me ungrateful and selfish. My dad brought up every instance he could remember where they had supported me, even though I worked part-time to help with expenses. He emphasized paying for my braces, which were medically necessary, buying my school supplies, the bare minimum, and letting me live at home during college. He conveniently omitted the car they bought Amy, the numerous shopping sprees, and the fact that they continue to support her financially at 25. Things escalated quickly. My dad, acting as the executor of the will, decided to take matters into his own hands. He announced that he would be interpreting Grandpa's intentions and giving Amy my entire share, in addition to her own. He claimed that Grandpa would have wanted this if he had known our unique situation. I was devastated. This was not only blatantly illegal but also a painful reminder of how little my parents valued me. I tried to reason with them, pointing out that Grandpa had always treated all his grandchildren equally and that he was aware of our circumstances. My mom then accused me of speaking ill of the deceased, by suggesting that Grandpa would have preferred anything other than what my dad was proposing. I mentioned specific memories of Grandpa encouraging my academic and career pursuits, but my parents dismissed these as misinterpretations. They claimed that Grandpa had privately expressed concern for Amy's future and wanted to ensure she was taken care of. When I asked why he hadn't simply written the will that way, they had no answer. Amy, for her part, was uncomfortable with the situation but didn't voice any objections to our parents' actions. She simply shrugged and said, "Mom and Dad know best," when I tried to talk to her privately. It was clear she wasn't going to be of much help. Feeling betrayed and hurt, I reached out to my paternal grandmother, Grandpa's widow, for advice. She was furious when she heard what was happening. She informed me that my parents had no authority to change the will and that this was absolutely not what Grandpa had intended. Grandma revealed some crucial information. Apparently, several years ago, my parents had approached Grandpa and asked him to leave everything to Amy in his will. Grandpa had adamantly refused, stating that he believed all his grandchildren should be treated equally. He had even included a clause in his will specifying that anyone who challenged the equal distribution would forfeit their share. Armed with this knowledge, I confronted my parents. They were shocked by Grandma's revelation of their prior attempt to influence the will. My dad tried to justify it by saying they were only looking out for Amy's best interests, but I could see the guilt in their expressions. Grandma took immediate action. She contacted the other executors of the will and her attorney. She also reached out to my dad's siblings, who were equally outraged by his attempted manipulation. Together, they put a stop to my dad's scheme and ensured that the will would be executed as written. My parents were forced to back down, although they remain unhappy with me. They accused me of turning the family against them, and claimed I should have handled this internally. My mom cried about how I had broken up the family and betrayed them. When my dad threatened to completely cut me out of their will, I responded that I had never expected anything from them anyway. Now, they're threatening to cut off all contact if I accept the inheritance. My dad even went so far as to say I wouldn't be welcome in their home if I inherited it. In a particularly cruel remark, my mom said that my acceptance of the money proved I never truly loved them and was just waiting to profit from their deaths. The situation has divided the extended family. Some of my cousins are supportive, understanding the long-standing favoritism and appreciating that I'm finally standing up for myself. Others believe I should have conceded to maintain peace, prioritizing family harmony over financial matters. My dad's siblings are firmly on my side, but this has strained their relationship with my parents. Amy is caught in the middle of all this. She confided in me privately that she feels terrible and didn't ask for any of this, but she's not ready to challenge our parents. She's been conditioned her entire life to rely on them and seek their approval, so I don't entirely blame her. Still, a part of me wishes she would stand by me, just once. This whole ordeal has resurfaced a lot of past hurt and resentment. I find myself recalling all the instances I was overlooked or dismissed in favor of Amy. The birthday parties I didn't have, the school events my parents missed, the achievements that went unacknowledged. This one event seems to be the culmination of a lifetime of inequity. Despite the significant rift this has caused in the family, I'm standing my ground and intend to accept my inheritance as Grandpa intended. My parents barely speak to me, and family gatherings have become strained. I skipped our monthly family dinner last week for the first time ever because I couldn't bear the cold shoulders and judgmental stares. Even amidst the turmoil, a small part of me feels empowered. For the first time in my life, I'm confronting my parents' unfair treatment. I'm asserting my worth and refusing to be dismissed. It's both terrifying and liberating. Although I believe I'm in the right, the family drama is taking its toll. I've started experiencing anxiety attacks again, something I hadn't dealt with since college. I'm considering going back to therapy to help cope with all this stress. Am I wrong to have defied my parents' wishes and accepted my inheritance? Should I have just given Amy the money to keep the peace? I'm tired of being the family scapegoat, but I also fear losing my family completely. Any advice or perspective would be greatly appreciated. Update. A lot has transpired since my initial post 6 months ago. I want to express my gratitude to everyone for their support and guidance. It truly gave me strength during a challenging time. Let me begin with the legal aspects. As many of you suggested, I consulted with my own lawyer. He confirmed that I had every legal right to the inheritance and that my dad's actions were indeed illegal. He helped me document everything and prepare for potential legal action, should it become necessary. Fortunately, it didn't come to that. My grandma, along with my dad's siblings and her attorney, resolved the situation without going to court. I received my full inheritance, and the will was executed precisely as intended. My dad was removed as an executor due to his attempts to manipulate the will. This was a somewhat stressful process that lasted several weeks. There were threats of litigation from my parents, tense meetings, and angry phone calls, but ultimately, the law was clear, and they had to concede. However, the family fallout has been considerable and continues to this day. Initially, my parents doubled down on their stance. They accused me of being greedy and uncaring towards my sister. They also attempted to rally other family members against me, spreading false claims that I had somehow manipulated Grandpa into giving me the money. Thankfully, most of the family saw through their tactics. There was one particularly unpleasant incident at a family gathering about a month after the will was settled. My aunt was hosting and hadn't invited my parents, but they showed up unannounced and created a scene. My dad started yelling about how I had stolen from Amy and turned grandma against them, my mother, claiming I ruined precious memories, threw an old photo album at my feet. It was incredibly awkward and upsetting. It took several relatives to de-escalate the situation and convince my parents to leave. My grandmother, bless her heart, has been my strongest ally throughout all of this. She shared stories of how my grandfather had always been proud of my accomplishments and how he specifically wanted to ensure all his grandchildren had equal opportunities. She even revealed that Grandpa had kept a scrapbook of my achievements, newspaper clippings of academic awards, copies of my college acceptance letters, and even the program from that school play my parents were late to. This revelation was both heartbreaking and heartwarming. Grandma also took it upon herself to set the record straight with the extended family. She organized a family meeting, excluding my parents, and laid out the entire history of my parents' favoritism, including incidents I had long forgotten or never even knew about. It was validating to finally have someone acknowledge the unfairness I had endured for years, but it also reopened old wounds. As for my sister, Amy, she finally found her voice in all of this. After some soul-searching and several long conversations with our grandmother, she came to me privately and apologized for not standing up for me sooner. She admitted that she thought our parents' favoritism was wrong but had been too afraid to challenge it. We had a long, emotional conversation about our childhood and how it had affected us both. Amy confessed that being the favorite wasn't as great as it seemed. She felt immense pressure to live up to our parents' expectations and never learned to be independent. She shared stories of times she had wanted to do things on her own, but our parents would swoop in and take care of everything, depriving her of the chance to learn and grow from her mistakes. This conversation was a turning point in our relationship. We've started to repair the sibling bond that our parents' favoritism had damaged. We've been meeting regularly for coffee, just the two of us, to talk and support each other through this family crisis. She shocked everyone, stating she'd use her inheritance for college. She said watching me stand up encouraged her to take her life. After figuring out her study, she enrolled in community college, planning to transfer. Our parents let out a gasp. I think they realized that their coddling hadn't done Amy any favors. My parents' reaction to all of this has been mixed and evolving. Initially, they were furious with both of us. They accused me of turning Amy against them and tried to guilt-trip her into dropping out of college to support the family. When that didn't work, they shifted tactics. After several lengthy conversations with my grandmother and witnessing Amy's positive transformation, my mother has started to acknowledge the harm their actions have caused. She has made some tentative steps towards reconciliation, even starting therapy to address her own issues. She reached out to apologize, admitting that she had been unfair and asking for a chance to make amends. It's a slow process, and while I'm cautiously optimistic, I'm also maintaining firm boundaries. My dad, unfortunately, has been less willing to admit any wrongdoing. He remains angry and believes he is the victim in all of this. He's been cold towards Amy since she decided to go to college and barely speaks to me. He's made a few attempts to manipulate us, threatening to sell our childhood home if we don't come to our senses, or offering forgiveness if we admit we were wrong. It hurts to see him alienating both of his children like this, but we're both standing firm. The dynamics within the extended family have shifted significantly. I've become closer to my grandmother and my dad's siblings, who have been incredibly supportive. Hearing from my aunts and uncles about their own experiences dealing with my dad's difficult behavior over the years has made me feel less alone in this struggle. I've also formed deeper connections with some of my cousins who stood by me. We've started a monthly cousin dinner, where we can all catch up without the drama of the older generation. As for myself, I've been using my inheritance wisely. I've paid off my student loans, which has given me an incredible sense of financial freedom. I've created a diversified investment portfolio with the help of a financial advisor. I've also set aside some funds for potentially starting my own business in a few years. I'm exploring the possibility of opening a community center that offers affordable mental health services and financial literacy workshops. But the most meaningful use of the money, for me, has been paying for therapy for myself and offering to do the same for Amy. We're both working on healing from our childhood experiences and learning to set healthy boundaries with our parents. It's a long journey, but I already feel like I'm gaining a sense of self-awareness and resilience that I never had before. This entire process has brought some unexpected positive changes into my life. I've learned a great deal about setting boundaries and standing up for myself. While it hasn't been easy, and there are still difficult days, I feel proud of myself for resisting the guilt and pressure. One of the most surprising outcomes has been a shift in my career aspirations. Dealing with all this family dysfunction and going through therapy has helped me realize how passionate I am about supporting others who have experienced similar family dynamics. I'm now considering going back to school to become a family therapist, specializing in working with adult children of emotionally immature parents. I've also started volunteering at a local youth center, providing support and mentorship to young people from challenging family backgrounds. It's incredibly fulfilling to be able to offer the kind of guidance and support that I wish I had received as a child. I'm even considering using some of my inheritance to create a scholarship fund for students from similar circumstances. My relationship with Amy continues to improve. We have a sibling day, once a month where we do something fun, just the two of us. Last month, we went hiking and had a picnic, and it was the most relaxed and connected we've felt since we were little kids. We're slowly rebuilding our relationship on our own terms, free from our parents' influence. As for my parents, things remain complicated. My mom is attempting to rebuild our relationship. She's been attending therapy regularly and has even started to acknowledge some of the damage her favoritism caused. We've had a few one-on-one lunches where we've had some honest, albeit difficult, conversations about our past and where we go from here. It's not perfect, but there's progress. My dad, however, remains resistant to change. He still maintains that he did nothing wrong and that Amy and I should be grateful. He refuses to be in the same room as me, and as a result, he's missed several family functions. It hurts, but I'm trying to let go of my need to force him to see things differently or control his reactions. Grandma has become a rock for both Amy and me. She's been sharing more stories about our grandfather and how proud he was of us for standing up for ourselves. She's always been a champion of fairness and understanding, and she's been a wonderful mediator in family disputes. This whole experience has taught me a lot of lessons about the true meaning of family. I've learned that sometimes the family you choose can be more supportive than the one you're born into. I've become closer to my aunts, uncles, and cousins who stood by me, and I've also cultivated a close-knit circle of friends who have been incredibly supportive throughout this journey. I've also learned the importance of setting boundaries and practicing self-care. I'm getting better at saying no to situations that compromise my mental health, and I no longer feel guilty about prioritizing my own well-being. I was so focused on trying to gain my parents' approval that I had always put off exploring new interests and hobbies. To anyone in a similar situation, I would advise you not to let anyone make you feel guilty for receiving what is rightfully yours. It's okay to stand up for yourself, even if it causes conflict. Family dynamics can be complex, but you deserve to be treated fairly. Remember, it's never too late to start building the life you deserve. Seek therapy if needed, surround yourself with supportive people, and don't be afraid to set boundaries. Your worth is defined by who you are, not by how your family treats you. I want to thank each of you again for your advice and encouragement. It meant more than you know during a very difficult time. While the road hasn't been easy, I'm excited about the future and filled with a sense of self-assurance that I haven't experienced in years. I'm excited to see where this new chapter of my life takes me, and I'm determined to break the cycle of favoritism and build healthier relationships in my own future family. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.